So, good afternoon. What did we do last time? There was a question you had to conclude. So there is a question, it was for which section? It was 2018, November 2018. So it was November 2018, question 5, part C. It was question number 5, part C. So let us now conclude on that question. Question number 5, part C, for November 2018. So we have already discussed the question. We are only concluding on it. We have already discussed the question. So what we need to do is to create the column. There will be the column for equity. There is meant to be the column for equity and also the column for the debt. Like that. So we need to create the column for equity and also the column for the debts. Then after that, remember also beta factor of equity for the levered farm. We are also meant to compute beta factor of equity for the levered farm. This is supposed to be given by beta factor of equity for the unlevered farm 1 plus D over D. Then to come up with that. Then you are also meant to calculate KEL, risk-free rate, expected return of the market, risk-free rate, beta factor of equity for the levered farm. And you recall that WSCC, weight for equity, cost of equity for the levered farm, then you add weight of the debt multiplied by this one is always after the tax. So we simplify the information in that manner. So there is equity, debt, beta factor of equity for the levered farm, then KEL, like that. And finally, we compute the value SEC. Finally, we come up with the WSCC. So we had agreed that we do some workings. Whereby you can leave a space of like 6 lines. 6 lines, we do the workings. Remember the proportions? They were not given. So you need to come up with a proportion for each. So the first one is bond rating A. The first working is the bond rating A. So those who are online, we have said you leave a space of at least 6 lines so that we do some workings to get the proportions. You leave a space of at least 6 lines so that we do a working for the proportions. So the first one is bond rating A. So bond rating A, they gave you debt to equity. debt to equity, they have given us, it is 0.0. So it is 0.0 to 1. It is 0.0 to 1. So they have given us 0.0. With the other one must always be 1. So the 1 for the debt is 0. Then the 1 for equity is 1. So which means there is no debt. That's what they imply. So the proportion for the debt will be 0. The 1 for equity will be 1. Because the 2 should add up to 1. Those proportions should be able to add up to 1. So if this one has already taken up 1, the other one must be 0. So the proportion R, equity is 1 because the debt has been given us as 0. Equity is 1 because the debt has been given as 0. So we come at this point to compute the beta factor of equity for the levered farm. The beta factor of equity for ungeared or unlevered, you are given in the note number 6. You can see note 6, it is 1.2. They have given us 1.2. So 1 plus. So debt over equity is 0. Debt over equity is 0. Then also remember, we normally tax that. 1 minus 0.2. But finally, because this part is a 0, that figure will just remain 1.2. It will just remain a value of 1.2. So when now it comes to this area, risk-free rate has been given in the note number 2. They gave us what percent? So we have 5%. Then expected return for the market minus the risk-free rate is what we refer to as the risk premium. And the difference between expected return of the market and the risk-free rate is what is the risk premium. So it has already been calculated for us. So they gave us which figure? 8. So that value is 8, then multiplied by 1.2. Like that. That figure is 8. So we multiply 1.2 by 1.2. Get 14.6. So now our WSC would be the proportion for equity is 1 multiplied by 14.6. Then the proportion for the debt is not there, it is 0. Even KD is also given as 0, isn't it? So multiply 0.7. So finally, it is simply going to be 14.6. It will just be 14.6. So that's now the first one. That will be now the first one. So we go to the second one. We go to the second one. So the second one is the bond rating BB. So the second one is the bond rating BB. So no, yeah, I'm just doing the working here. Yes. Yeah, so what we do in that portion, debt to equity is given as 0.25. So it will be 0.25 is to 1. So it will be 0.25 is 1. So I've shown you something in relation to that. You can check for the least common multiple. the least common multiple will be 0.25. So 0.25 will go there once. 0.25 will go there 4 times. Or you go to your calculator. You press 0.25, you put there equal sign, then you press the sign of ABC. It will compare 1 over 4. Now, which is the same as 1 is to 4. Which is the same as 1 is to 4. So, when you add them together, they come to be 5. So, when you want to get equity, debt, it is 1 over 5. Debt will be 1 over 5. 1 over 5 is the same as which here? 0.2. So that will be 0.2. Then equity will be 4 over 5, which will obviously be 0.8, like that. So that is now our ratio of debt to equity. So equity is 0.8, and debt is 0.2, like that. Then now we come at this point, 1.2, 1 plus. So debt over equity is what you are given as 0.25. So this debt over equity is 0.25. And also multiply 0.7. So itakuja which figure when you round it off? 1.4. So I'm told the figure is 1.41. So when it comes to this part, it is 5, then plus 8, then 1.41, like that. 1.41. 16.28. So when it comes to the WSC, the weight for equity is 0.8 multiplied by 16.28. Then we also add this one is 0.2. So the question had given you the pre-tax cost of the debt. Or it's there 8 point what? You can see 8.5. Also multiply 0.7. Get the value for that. So after that, we go to the next one, which is BB. We also check the next one, which is supposed to be BB. So BB, the debt to equity ratio, they gave us 0.6 is to 1. 0.6 is to 1. To be 0.6 is to 1. So you can get the least common multiple, or you can use your calculator. If you check the least common multiple, you see 0.2, can go to all of them. So 0.2 can go to 0.6 3 times again. It will go to 1 5 times. Yeah. Then on your calculator, you have to pay this 3 over 5. Yeah, so it is the same as 3 is to 5. So this will give us a total of 8. So that debt will be 3 over 8. Then equity will be 5 over 8. So I will just use them the way they are because when you divide, they have some decimal point, isn't it? Yeah, so what you do for equity, simply have it as 5 over 8. Debt 3 over 8. Then you come at this point. 1.2, then 1 plus 0. I'm given 0.6, isn't it? Also moved by 0.7. So we get the value for that question. So this one should give us around which figure? 1.704. So when it comes to this part, it will be 5, then 8, then 1.704. So when it gets to this part, so what you do, you take 5 divided by 8, multiplied by 18.63. Then you also add 3 over 8. So this one you are to multiply by 10. Then also multiply 0.7. So that we get the WSC for that. So to come up with the WSC. So we go to the next one. The next one is the one for C. So we check also the one for C. So C, debt to equity was given as 1.7. So you're given 1.7 to 1. Like that. It should be 1.7 is 1. So on your calculator, 1 and 7 over 10. So you over 10, you multiply it by 10. 1 over 10. So it is 1, 7, then over 10.
So the question. If you don't deal with the decimals, if you don't deal with the fraction, what if you multiply them by 10 so that D to E becomes 10 to 17? Then now the proportion becomes 10 over 27, the other is 17 over 27. It's the same. Yes. Because suppose we use it
in fact, it is only for this one. This specific one, when it has some decimal point, like now, you can just even have it like 1.7 plus 1. So itakuja 2.7. Like now for debt, we just take 1.7 divided by 2.7. Then for equity, it will just be 1 divided by 2.7. It will be the same thing. Or it is 17 over 27, isn't it? 10 over 27. Yeah. So it is the same thing. What I've done, this one has a decimal point. So we said that I get the one for debt, the one for equity, I add them. So, yeah. But now this one is not there in your calculator. It is 1.7 is 1, then divide by 10, isn't it? So what you do, you just multiply each by 10. So it will be 17 is to 10, which is the same as 1.7 is to 1. So when I add, instead of 27, but let me just do it normally. So when they give you divide by 10, you are multiplying each by 10. So this becomes 17, then this one will be 10. So that when you add them together, they are 27. So that when it comes to the debt, it is 17 over 27. Then equity will be 10 over 27, like that. So now your proportions, you get them at this point. So equity is 10 over 27. You're immediately 17 over 27. So we still come at this point. It is 1.2. 1 plus 0. 1.7. 1.7 also plus 0.7. So that we get that value. So this one should give us it here. 2.63. So that this will be 5. It's 2.63. 6.04. So when it comes to that point, it is 10 over 27. So that one you are supposed to multiply it by 14. Also multiply 0.7. Then you go to the last one, which is D. Now check the last one, which is supposed to be D. So when it comes to D, for debt to equity ratio, it is 2.5 is to 1. It is 2.5 is to 1. So that one you can get it from your calculator. It is going to be 5 is to 2. Is it 5 is to 2? Confirm in your calculator. Napata? Yeah, 2 and say 2.5. Anyway, 0.5 is the least common multiple. When you take 2.5 divided by 0.5, 2.5 divided by 0.5, inakuja 5. Then 1 divided by 0.5. So that is giving me a total of 7. If you don't want to use the calculator, just look at these two figures, 2.5 and 1. So you look for the smallest figure. When you divide by this, it has no decimal point, which can also go to this. It has no decimal point. So for mine, I can see 0.5 can go there, 0.5 can also go there. So that we are now having 5 is to 2. When you add them, they add up to 7. So that equity will be 2 over 7. Debt will be 5 over 7. Like that.
But the way you were saying, it would still be the correct answer. He didn't simplify it.
Yes,
So
yes.
we can bring 25 over 35.
Yeah.
10 over 35.
Yes.
Still is better. So this
The same values.
yes.
So now our equity there, we will put there 2 over 7 and also 5 over 7. So now this one should give us which figure? Sorry? Nakuja 3.3.
Yes.
Exactly 3.3.
Yes.
Then now this one should be 5 then plus it. At 1.5. So this one you take 2/7. So that one you are to multiply it by 16. And also 0.7. So that's the only difference between this question and the one that we had done last time. So Roman letter 1, they were asking me to explain the optimal capital structure. So which one has the lowest WSC among all of them? This second one. It was which figure? 14.21. So we comment Roman letter 1, we note that the optimal capital structure is where equity is 80%. The optimal capital structure is where equity is 80% and debt is 20%. Equity is 80%, debt is 20%. The debt will be 20%. Then now the Roman letter 2, they wanted you also to give them the optimal WSEC. So your optimal WSEC will be the 14.21. So the optimal WSEC is this particular one. You write there 14.21. That Roman letter 2, you give them that figure of 14.21. So that is now on that portion. That was now meant to be on that element. That's now what you have to come up with on that portion. So let us now have a brief subtopic as types of the capital structure theories. We can now have a subtopic as types of capital structure theories. We can have the types of the capital structure theories. Types of the capital structure theories. Now look at the types of the capital structure theories. So number one will be net income theory. Number one will be the net income theory. Number one will be the net income theory. So under the net income theory, we can summarize that according to this theory, comma, the financial risk, according to this theory, comma, the financial risk does not affect, the financial risk does not affect the individual cost of capital, does not affect the individual cost of capital, does not affect the individual cost of capital, i.e. leverage, so i.e. leverage does not affect Cost of debt and equity. Leverage does not affect cost of debt and equity. However, the theory argued that the cost of debt, will always be lower than the cost of equity. The theory argued that the cost of debt will always be lower than the cost of equity. The cost of debt will always be lower than the cost of equity because interest on the debt is a tax allowable expense. Because interest on the debt is a tax allowable expense. Interest on the debt is a tax allowable expense. Then another paragraph, we summarize that the theory concluded as leverage increase, the WSEC will decrease. As leverage increase, WSEC will decrease. The WSEC will decrease. Then another paragraph notes that this can be represented using a diagram as follows. This can be represented using a diagram as follows. It can be represented using a diagram as follows. So KD is the cost of debt, KE is the cost of equity. Then WSC, So we can now add there another paragraph. So we can now add there another paragraph by summarizing that the theory concluded that, so the theory concluded that there is optimal capital structure. It concluded that there is optimal capital structure where WSEC is minimum, where WSEC is minimum, and the value is maximum, Hence, the capital structure decisions are relevant. Hence, the capital structure decisions are relevant. The capital structure decisions are relevant. And another paragraph, we note that according to this theory, according to this theory, comma, the value of equity of the unlevered or ungeared firm. According to this theory, the value of equity of the unlevered or ungeared firm will be expressed as follows. The value of equity of unlevered or ungeared firm will be expressed as follows. So the value of equity of the unlevered or ungeared firm. So to calculate value of equity of the unlevered firm, it will simply be equal to earnings before interest and tax, then 1 minus the tax rate, then we divide by KEU. So when you want to compute the value of equity of unlevered firm, will be equal to earnings before interest and tax, then in brackets 1 minus the tax rate. So KEU is the cost of equity of the unlevered firm. So KEU is simply cost of equity of the unlevered firm. So KEU will simply be the cost of equity of the unlevered firm. Then we also add there that also we say that value of equity, then value of equity of the levered firm will be equal to earnings before interest and tax. We minus interest, then 1 minus the tax rate, then we divide by KEL. So to compute value of equity of the levered firm, it will be earnings before interest and tax. Then we minus interest, then we tax. So KEL is the cost of equity for the levered firm. KEL is meant to be the cost of equity of the levered firm. So we can now get some questions in relation to that. So one of the questions we can apply should be June 2008. Question number 2, part A. So you can refer to June 2008. June 2008. So there is a question number 2, part A. So those questions, they are just typed June 2008. Question number 2, part A. Mine is on page 98. I don't know on your side. Correct? 103. Page 93. So some, it is on page 93, but mine is on page 98. There is a question for June 2008. Are you able to see question 2? June 2008. Question number 2. It is not that for the entire city. We're trying to just 2 questions for that. Looking at page 100. You can also check page 100. You also say yours was 90? 93. Mine is on page 98. So that question reads that the following extract, you can see the area of the following extract of the balance sheet of Mapato Limited, shows the capital structure of the company. It shows the capital structure of the company as at 31st December 2007. As at 31st December 2007. So you are given ordinary share capital. The bar value is 125. Total amount is 62.5 million. Then reserves, also the shareholders' equity. You are also given 14% debenture stock. The bar value is 500. Total amount is 118.5. They also gave you capital employed. So the management of the company considers the above capital structure to be optimal. The above capital structure to be optimal. So additional information, note number 1. The company's earnings before interest and tax, it was able to average 75 million per annum. These earnings are expected to be maintained in the foreseeable future. Note number 2, ordinary shares of, so that note should be corrected. You correct that note. Note number 2 is that market price of the debentures. It should read that you correct. I'm saying you correct. Note number 2, market price of the debentures, you write, because the sentence is not correct. You wrap the sentence, you write average. The market price of the debenture is 400 per share, per debenture. It should be not number 3, sorry. It should be the not number 3. Not number 2 remain the same, sorry, it's correct. What you need to change there is the debenture. It should be the market price of the ordinary share is 400 per share. So you remove the debenture there, but the sentence should read that market price of the ordinary share is 400 shillings per share. That's now the note number 2. Then the note number 3 is correct. The market price of the debenture is 525 per debenture. So now we go to the note number 4. The coupon tax rate is 30%. Then required, the corporate tax rate is 30%. So required using the net income approach. That's theory. Incorporating the tax, calculate Roman letter 1 is the cost of equity. So cost of equity, we shall apply this formula. We make cost of equity to be the subject. KEL is the cost of equity for the delivered firm. So it will be given by earnings before interest and tax. We minus interest, then we tax. Then we divide by value of equity of the delivered firm. So this value for equity, we shall get the number of the ordinary shares, multiplied by the current market price per share. So that's now how we shall get the cost of equity, because the company is levered, it has both equity and debt. So we apply this second formula. And Roman letter 2, after tax cost of the debt, that is market value weighted. Then there should be Roman letter 3. Roman letter 3 should be the weighted average cost of capital. I don't know that is there. So we need to get the weighted average cost of capital. So we start off with the Roman letter 1. How to calculate the cost of equity. So we go to the Roman letter 1, how we can be able to calculate the cost of equity. So we go to the Roman letter 1. how to calculate the cost of equity. So cost of equity, we make KEL to be the subject. It will be given by earnings before interest and tax. We subtract interest, then 1 minus the tax rate. We divide by the value of equity. The value of equity. So it should be market value for equity. So to calculate market value of equity, market value for equity, you simply take the number of the ordinary shares. Number of the ordinary shares. Then we multiply by the current market price per share. The current market price per share. Current market price per share. So number of the ordinary shares, we check under the capital structure. There was 62.5 millions divided by the above value. So you take 62.5 millions. Divide by the above value, which is 125. So multiplied by current market price per share in the note number 2. We say it is how much? Wow. So you get the number of the ordinary shares, whereby you come up with that question happen? 500. 400 total value.
200.
When you multiply 400, it becomes how much? So we get 200 millions. So we also calculate interest. We now also compute what is supposed to be there as interest. So to calculate the figure for interest, the question had given you 14% debenture stock. So get 14%. 14% of 118.5 millions. You get 14% of 118.5 millions. $16. 16.59. So now you compute your KEL. So earnings before interest and tax is there in the note number 1. Sorry? In the note number 1, it's given as 75 millions. Then we subtract 16.59 millions. Corporate tax was given as 30%. That is the Then you divide by 200 millions. So that one is giving us, when you express it as a percent, 20.44. Then we now go to the Roman letter 2. So Roman letter 2, they would like you to calculate the cost of the debenture. So that debenture is irredeemable because they have not given you the maturity period. So that debenture is irredeemable. They have not given us the maturity period. Now also compute the cost of the debenture. So cost of the debenture or the debt. So cost of the debenture is the same as KD. It will be interest 1 minus the tax rate divided by current value of the debenture minus the flotation cost. Then we express it as a percentage. Then we express it as a percentage. Remember, we are computing for just one debenture. So we calculate on par debenture. So interest is calculated on the bar value, and the interest rate is 14%. So what is the bar value that you are given in the question? 500. So what is 14% of 500? So it will give you a value of 70. Then current value for the debenture was given. Current value for the debenture was given. Consider not number 3. It is 5. So the question did not provide for the flotation cost. So KD, you simply take the interest, which is 70, then you tax, because it must always be after the tax. Then divide by 525. Then you show that as a percentage. So giving us 9.3. Yeah, so now finally we go to the Roman letter 3, where we compute the WSCC. Now go to the Roman letter 3, where we calculate the WSCC. So to get the WSCC, we need to get the total market value. We need to get the total market value. So we start with the equity. We have already calculated the one for equity. But remember, when you are taking 62.5, divide by 125, we multiply by 400. It gave us 2. So it had given you 200 millions. We do the same for the debenture or the debt. Debenture or the debt. So you take 118.5. 118.5 millions. Divide by the bar value, which is 500. Multiplied by the current was 5. It was 5. So it should give us 100 of us. 124.4. So you add them together. So when we add them together, there will be a total of 324.425. So we are computing the WSCC. So WSCC will be weight of equity, cost of equity for the delivered fund. Also, weight of the debt. So KD must always be after the tax, but we have already taxed that figure. So our weight for equity, you simply take the 200 millions, divide by the total 324.425 millions. So cost of equity for the delivered fund, Roman letter 1, we got 20.4. 20.4. Then this other one, it will be 124.425. Also divide by 324.425. So your figure after tax, you have just told me it is 9.9. So it is already after tax. Don't tax again. That figure you had already taxed. So you don't tax again, you just use it like that. So we should get around which figure? 16.18. So the next question should be May 2019, question 3, part B. We can also check May 2019, question number 3, part B. May 2019, question number 3, part B. So let us also check May 2019, question number 3, part B. May 2019, question number 3, part B. So let us check May 2019, question number 3, part B. So the question is about Somolo Limited. Is a firm operating in the manufacturing industry. It is a firm operating in the manufacturing industry. So the firm's current capital structure is given as follows. So you are given ordinary share capital, they gave you 80 millions. Reserves, they have given you 20 millions. Then 10% irredeemable debenture capital. They also gave us 100 shillings per value. Total amount is 30 million. 8% preference share capital. The bar value is 20. Total amount is 150 millions. Then additional information, note number 1. The current market price per share of the firm's ordinary share is 34.80, which is cum dividends. Cum dividend, it has included dividend. Cum dividend means it has included dividend. So you must subtract the dividend. We normally use X dividend. We normally use X dividend like that. So X dividend, it means they have paid dividend. So we shall be subtracting dividend on that figure to get the X dividend. The note number 2, the firm will adopt 60% dividend payout ratio. Not number 3. The most recent earning per share of the firm is given as how much? 8. Then not number 4. Not number 4. Not number 4, they say that the historical dividend per share over the last 4 years are as follows. So 2015 will be DO. 2016 will be D1. 2017 will be D2. Then 2018 will be D3. So which means N will be 3. So we shall be using the compounding method to get the constant growth rate. We shall be using the compounding method to get the constant growth rate. Then when you go to the note number 5, the firm's management is contemplating to invest in a project which will cost shillings 40 million. The project is expected to generate shillings 9 million each year in perpetuity. Note number 6, the project has an estimated beta of 1.5. Note number 7, the return from a well-diversified market portfolio is 18. The ventures are considered to be risk-free and are valued at par. Then note number 9, existing 8% irredeemable preference shares are currently trading at how much? 25 shillings each. Note number 10, the corporate tax rate is 30%. So required, they want you to calculate return on equity using the cordon approximation method. There are the 2 methods of computing the growth rate. Compounding. So we use first the compounding to get the growth rate. Then we repeat the same using the retention ratio method, because by then we'll have calculated G. Then dividend payout ratio is given, which means retention ratio is able to be identified. Then now return on equity is not known, so we make it to be the subject. So they are testing you the 2 methods of calculating the constant growth rate. First, use the compounding to get the growth rate. Then now you use the retention ratio to get the return on equity. Remember, when you use the retention ratio to calculate G, it is supposed to be given by the retention ratio of the profit multiplied by the return on equity. That's now what they require to do. Then finally, Roman letter 2, weighted average cost of capital, because Roman letter 3, we have not discussed that. So we start with the Roman letter 1. We start off with the Roman letter 1, where they would like you to calculate return on equity. Roman letter 1, they wanted you to calculate the return on equity. So we use the compounding method to calculate G. So G is supposed to be given by, so N here we have said is how many years? 3. That is 3. N will be 3. Then Dn, that's D3 divided by D4, then minus 1. So it will be 3. So D3 is the dividend per share in the year 2018. It was 4.8. Then 2015 is 4.0. Then you minus 1. So that you get G. So when you express it as a percentage, it should be 4.66%. Unapata ngapi? This is the third time. This is the third time we are using that formula. I say it can also be given by 4.80. You can also confirm it that way. Online on the 4.66. Sorry? Targeting? Hapo ndio kuna shida. So online so most of them they have given me 6.27.
Yes.
They are saying 6.27. Someone had given me 4.66. Hiyo ilitokana na nini? Are you raising the bar? So majority are saying it is 6.27. We are all getting 6.27. So now we apply that figure to calculate return on equity. So to get the return on equity, still we use the retention ratio. G is supposed to be given by retention ratio multiplied by the return on equity. So now we make return on equity to be the subject. So return on equity will be G divided by R. G divided by R. G divided by R. So this figure we have agreed is 6.27. So this will be 6.27. Retention ratio, payout ratio, they gave you what percent in the note number 2. So that means retention ratio will be, so you divide by 40%. So that we get the return on equity. So it will come up with. So this is the formula of getting G using the retention ratio method. So G has already been calculated. Retention ratio is given because dividend payout ratio is 60. So retention ratio is 14%. So you make this to be the subject. So making this to be the subject is just this divided by that. If you have it at that point, then we come up with the value. So when you are using the retention ratio method, G is supposed to be R, what by the return on equity. But we already have retention ratio because dividend payout ratio was 60%. So retention ratio will be 40%. So we made this one to be the subject, making it to be simply G divided by R, which we have it at that point. And now we make return on equity in the subject. It's our payout here. 15.68. 15.68. Sorry? It is already a percentage. Yeah. Or if you wish, unachukua 0.0627. Also divide by 0.4. Then the figure you get multiplied by 100.
If you use 6.27 over 40, then you do
not that way. That's why I've said, in case you want to use the ones without percentage. If I had divided this by 100, give me 0. Then it was 0.4. When you do that, then you express it as a percentage. Okay, what I should now explain is that this one is 40%. So it is retention ratio will be 40% when the dividend payout ratio was 60%. So all of them will add up to 100. So you simply take 40 over 100, which is the same as 0.4. So if you wish now, you can have this one as 0.4. You come up with that portion, but it will still give you the same percent. Because these ones, they add up. Here I add up 100, not only 6.27. It was just a separate item. It was not a proportion. But dividend payout ratio and retention ratio are proportions. So they add up to 100. So if I want to get the one for the retention ratio, which is 40 over 100, to be 0.4. So maybe you can go this way so it doesn't confuse you. So it is giving us 15.67. 15.67. 675. Yeah, so that should be our Roman letter 1. Let us now check the Roman letter 2. Yeah. Why are you not satisfied? So, but up to
I understand how to convert retention ratio. We are using 0.4 because retention was
you like the way it was. So 6.27 divided by 0.4. So let us check the Roman letter 2, the WSCC. We now want to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. So to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, so we compute first the cost of ordinary share. We start with the cost of the ordinary share. We start off with the cost of the ordinary share, which will be the same as our equity. So KE should be given by DO 1 plus G divided by PO. We normally subtract the flotation cost, then we add G. Then we add G. So our DO, we all agree it is 20 what? 2018. We all agree that should be 2018. So last dividend per share in the year 2018, it is 4.8. Then 1 plus G. G was 6.27, isn't it? Yeah, which is the same as 0.0627. We divide by PO. PO, we say it must be X dividend. They gave you come dividend. You see the note number 1, 34.8. So subtract dividend for the year 2018. Dividend for the year 2018 is 4.8. When you minus 4.8 from 34.8, so it will be 30. So the question did not provide for the flotation cost. Then also 0.0627. Then express that figure as a percentage. Express that value as a percentage.
Yes.
Same answer, but different.
Did you just call us?
Yes.
I've seen 23.27. Yeah, so you also compute the cost of the preference share. Also calculate cost of the preference share. So cost of the preference share is supposed to be given by KD, D divided by PO minus the flotation cost. Then we express it as a percentage. So to calculate the cost of the preference share, come up with so first you compute the dividends. So dividends, you are given 8% preference share. The bar value is given as how much? So you get 8% of 20. So 8% of 20. Get 8% of 20. 1.6. So now to get our KD, so it will be 1.6. So PO was provided to you in the note number 9. You can see our note 9. The existing 8% irredeemable preference share. They currently trade at how much? 25. So our PO is 25. So the question did not provide for the flotation cost. So I just express it as a percentage. Okay, so it should be able to give you what percentage? 6.4. So the last one, he calculates the cost of the debenture. The last one, he computes the cost of the debenture. So cost of the debenture is KB. It is irredeemable. So interest 1 minus the tax rate. Current value for the debenture is subtracted for the issue cost. Then we should be required to express it as a percentage. Interest is normally calculated on the bar value. Interest is always computed on the bar value. When you check up the interest rate is 10%, the chemical debenture has a bar value of 100. So interest will be 10% of 100. Give us 10. So the current value for the debenture, you go to the note number 8. Note 8, they say that debentures are considered to be risk-free and are valued at par. So the current value for the debenture is the same as the par value, which is 100. Then after that, now we compute our K. So interest is 10. So 1 minus the corporate tax, which is 30%, divided by the current value for the debenture, which is 100. Show it as a percentage. Then we show that figure as a percentage. So it will give us 7%. Then we get the total market value to be our weight. We get the WSCC. Now get the total market value. So we get the total market value. So total market value you start with the equity, start off with equity. So that one you take 80 millions, divide by the par value, which is 10, multiplied by the current market price. Remember ex-dividend. To me, ex-dividend, it was how much per? So multiplied by that. That's what 240. Then the next one is meant to be the preference shares. Next one should be preference shares. So for the preference shares, you can see it is 20 million. So the bar value is what? Bar value is also 20. Then the current price was how much? Which is supposed to give us now how much? Then we do the same for the debentures. So debentures, it is 30 million. The bar value is 100. But they are also valued at par, which is also again 1. So it does remain. So you add them together to give us the total. So they are said in the note number 8 that debentures are considered to be risk-free And they are also valued at par. So that total should give us which here. We get to 95 minutes. So we want to calculate the WSEC. Weight of equity, the cost of equity. Weight of the preference shares, the cost of the preference shares. Weight for the debenture, the cost of the debenture, which must always be after the tax. So to calculate our WSEC, we simply get the weight of equity, not by the cost of equity, weight of the preference shares, not by the cost of the preference shares, weight of the debenture, the cost of the debenture, which must always be after the tax. So this will be 240 millions divided by 295. So what was KE? We calculate it was 23.27. Then that next one is supposed to be the preference shares. You got which here? Sorry. 6.4. That millions also divided by 295. So this one we got which figure? Equals 7. So you combine them together to give you the WSEC. So we combine them together to give us the WSEC. So we shall not do the Roman letter 3 because it is on another part of the topic. When we get there, we shall go back and finish the Roman letter 3. So that is now for the theory number 1, which was the net income theory. So we need to go to the theory number 2. So you can just write the theory number 2. Theory number 2 will be net operating income theory, but we shall discuss it in our next class. Our theory number 2 will be net operating income theory. So that one we shall discuss it in our next class. So we can stop there. Mona 20 point what? 20. Yeah, so we can stop there. When we meet next, we shall now go to the second theory.